Happy Beltane, everyone, and welcome. We have an awesome show for you today. I'm Kirsten, and this
And
is
I'm
my
Sam.
love course. Yes, this is my home. This is Sam.
And I'm this
And
way.
we have. Are you? Well, you're this way. Well, all right.
Oh.
She's over here, apparently. All right. Welcome to the Metaphysical Fat. We have two of our favorite guys today, Verdis, DeMosays, and Alpine. And we are going to talk. Yay! We love them. We're going to talk. We're going to talk about conspiracy theories, and we're probably going to go beyond that because we tend to waffle, and we're going to go on, and we've got lots of stuff to say. So let's just dive in.
Forgot my tinfoil hat. Darn it.
Oh, yeah, I tried to make one once, but it just yeah, I'm not a hat maker, so.
Well, we were having this conversation earlier. We were having a chat about being drunk and cutting our hair, and Nick said that I got drunk and cut myself with a fringe or bangs, as you say in America. And I was that drunk at the time. I thought, well, I'll just save that because I know it looks really bad, and I'll super glue it back on in the morning. And then when I woke up, I was like, that was a terrible idea. Why would you think that?
I'm a bit like that with beards. I tend to get drunk and shave my beard off, which is why it never gets that long.
And then wake up the next morning and the pillowcase looks like a murder scene.
Right.
Yeah, the feral cat that got in the night. Jesus, what's happened? Where's the cat?
That is something I'd like to study sometime as to why every time we want an energetic change, we always go to cutting our hair. It tends to be more dramatic for the ladies, but
yeah,
there's a theme there.
There is a theme.
You're onto something there, yeah.
It grows.
Now, I shared a story before we came on too about being really drunk in the parking lot outside of a punk rock show and saying I don't have spiky enough hair, and my friend cut it with a razor blade, which was really painful and also dreadful results. Drunk and cutting hair.
Yeah, no.
We joke she almost had a Sweeney Todd moment, and she's lucky to be here.
Verdis is right. I think it's probably worse and more traumatic for women. You know, no one really cares that much if we come with a buzz cut or something, you know.
Yeah. We always have the option of just shaving it all off and going, or in my case, genetics getting a hold of me. So.
All right. So let's move this ship onto course here. So conspiracy theories. We've talked a lot about, conspiracy theories. A lot of us on this path have started with conspiracy theories, way back. I mean, I remember when I was a kid finding all of these things that I thought were conspiracies, and they were. Obviously, some are true, some are not true. But first of all, I think we want to just talk about why is it important for us to even think about conspiracy theories? And I know you had some thoughts on that, Nick. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that they're one of the most important things for the process of anybody's awakening, which is also one of the reasons that even the dumbest ones get debunked when they should be able to debunk themselves with even the smallest application of logic. Case in point, birds aren't real. That is an actual conspiracy theory, that birds are actually little robots, that the reason they sit on power lines is to charge. These things should debunk themselves, and yet people will put effort into them. The fact that people believe them is essentially its own mental great filter. But while I don't promote any of that stuff, I do think they're critical because even believing the most outlandish ones is showing that you're willing to step outside the accepted norms, the accepted ways of thinking about things, and make that first question, no matter how stupid it might be. It is a mental training process to go through. There's no better way to train mental discernment than to look at things that are a true far out conspiracy theory and go, okay, in a vacuum, this makes sense. But when you apply it to the whole, it doesn't. So it teaches you that discernment nature, and also usually gets you asking more questions. You know, I think we started out with Alex Jones, Art Bell, David Wilcock, rest in peace for the effort you put in. You know, all these people that had little bits of it and spun it into wild stories. But I think the critical part for all these things is they make you ask, what more? Where could this go? Could I learn more? You know, the first olive out of the jar, as it were. I don't know how y'all see it on that.
I think you're right. They're a gateway, aren't they? So my own perspective on this is when you start to realize that that reality isn't linear, that it isn't what we've been told it is. I mean, we had a chat about this as well, about things like telepathy and the psychic phenomenon. And, you know, when I was growing up, there was these magazines that I was obsessed with because it was like, there's all this stuff out there, and it's like you're trying to make sense of the world in a world that's so inverted that it makes you question your own sanity. And like the insane people are the people that just believe what's right straight in front of their eyes, essentially. And it's a process of unfolding. And I think what they actually do is, whether they're right or not, because there's always layers of truth within everything. There's never like, this is right, this is wrong, black and white, like the birds on things. Who's to say that the government haven't got birds to spy on people? I'm not saying that all birds aren't real, but, you know, or who's to, because I mean, I had things where like birds come and find me because it's a shamanic thing. Or I've seen astral birds in the physical that come in as a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's a process of moving. So from a shamanic perspective, from ordinary to non-ordinary reality, because you start to realize that there's different levels of reality, and also that we're in this kind of controlled system. Not to say, oh, we need to be freaked out because we're being controlled to death, because, you know, it's just part of why we're here. But it's a discernment test. And it's like the people, you'll come across lots of different people, and the stepping stones out to that. Like you look at Joe Rogan, like you said, Alex Jones, all those kind of people that came out and they were really talking about what was going on. And it's like entry level. So you start to look at, I think, the corrupt political systems and the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And I mean, even I went to study nursing at university, and they spoke about the experiments that they did on prisoners, where they'd get other prisoners to like press a button and execute them and stuff. And that was under the carpet. And look, and you know, like the thing, what's it called, where they gave blankets covered in smallpox to people?
Mm-hmm.
Got the name of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're
rubbish conspiracy theories, because I can't ever remember them. Is it like a project something or other? And then you start to
There's
realize.
a lot to keep track of, to be fair, isn't there?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we learned about all these things, and even in the nursing thing, and then what they were teaching us was discernment, and to understand that we were talking about like the Geneva Convention and things like that, and then talking about how there's ethics now in nursing, and how you have to you meant to approach things in a certain way where people are checked fairly, you know, because we look at like World War II and the experiments that they did on people there, and
be better than Project 731.
Yeah, so it's kind of like you said, it's so deep and varied, and you start to unfold it. And I do just think it's a process of opening people's minds and realizing that, you know, not everybody's got good intentions for you. There are things that are going on, and to be my philosophy is, I'll never hang my hat on anything, but I won't say it's not right, you know, either. It's just being open, isn't it? Prove me wrong, basically. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Because you really can't confirm anything until it's irrelevant anyway. You know, I'm a huge aviation history buff, and you look at what the just aircraft the U.S. has built. The stealth fighter was built in the 70s. Nobody found out about it for 20 plus years. You know, I don't worry about the conspiracy theories and the stuff going on today because there's no way to confirm or deny it until after its usefulness is past. Look at the MK Ultra project. Look at everything going on like that. Until it's done, you don't know about it. So I always find it funny when people get all worried about, oh, this is happening, that's happening, this is going on, that's going on. It's like, bro, calm down. You'll never have it confirmed or denied. Use your discernment. Plot the patterns. It's not about the events, it's about the patterns that it's laying out. Because the patterns are the more important part than the individual details about everything happening.
Yeah, I find it astonishing that people even sort of live in a world where they scoff and they sneer from ear to ear at the very thought that there might be such a thing as a conspiracy. It's like history is absolutely crammed, stuffed, and rammed to the rafters with examples of, and you know, just it's nothing but examples of rich, powerful people conspiring together to maintain or increase their wealth and power. And yet, you know, you hear all these, you know, very kind of smug mainstream people going, conspiracies? There are no conspiracies. Don't be ridiculous, boy, you know. And it just, and people go along with that. It's like, have you ever read a history book?
Yep. That's why I prefer to call them conspiracy realists. Call myself a conspiracy realist.
It's the most reasonable, you know? Exactly. It's the most reasonable position for a person who has functioning critical reasoning faculties to take.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that doesn't mean to say you've got to accept any old crap, like, you know, some of the examples, you know, that all birds, all, you know, I mean, I like to put everything on the table. It's like Sam said, I have a very wide vista of possibility. That doesn't mean to say that it's a wide necessarily vista of acceptance, but you know that the bandwidth of possibility, as far as I'm concerned, is astonishingly wide.
Yeah. But it's less of this is true, this is false, and more,
right.
It's on a scale of very improbable to very probable. Yeah.
But the thing is, you know, like, as I get older, I've kind of had to even recalibrate my idea of what very improbable is as well. So, you know.
Yeah.
The floor does tend to fall out a little bit, doesn't it?
Apparently, people in Florida have a really wide scope of that, just from what I've read.
Is that right?
Apparently so. There was a man that got abducted and taken to an underwater thing by dolphins and forced to build an underwater castle, apparently. And then he was found lost and confused on a beach. But
if you're a fantasy book like me and you've read the Dragonlance Chronicles in the 80s, that actually was kind of put in a story already. So, yeah.
Kirsten will be able to back this up. America is home to weird. Like, there's a reason that Americans kind of just are able to handle everything with a shrug, because everything is just, this place embodies weird. You know, I can have
all our weirdos ran over to America and
yeah.
They have a whole continent to explore weirdness. So, you know,
and that's worked out so well for you guys, hasn't it?
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't
we
know.
all just sat here with our cigars going, no, puppy cook, obviously.
So when I say all the weird stuff happens, I mean, we have a lot more room for the weirdness. And I'd like to give kind of an example on my discernment scale, because I grew up in North Arkansas, which, in perspective, Arkansas, I live in Missouri currently, and Missouri as a whole is about the same land mass as all of the UK mashed into one. And Arkansas, about the same size. I grew up in North Arkansas, where it's 5 hours to a major interstate or motorway, if we want to borrow British parlance. You've got a 5-hour drive to get to any sort of major interstate. It was classed as an uninhabited area by the FAA, the flight authority here. So because it was classed as an uninhabited area, the Air Force could play with a lot of stuff out there. I've seen aircraft that I still can't find in any identification guides today. I've seen weird stuff happen. And as a kid growing up, we had a big farm, so I was always out hunting possums and armadillos, just try to keep our beans in one piece. And dark skies, you can see every star in there. I'd be out at night and I'd see a lot of weird stuff. And one night I'm out there and I see like this giant bright light show up in the sky. I'm like, that wasn't there a minute ago. And next thing you know, I start seeing a bunch of smaller lights coming up to it, hovering around it. And then the whole thing flashes and disappears. It's like, that's not normal. But that, I realized looking back, that was kind of my first example of the discernment thought process, because you're seeing something you can't explain. You go, okay. Now, this is before I had easy internet access too, so it was mostly books and a lot of wild theories. But you look at it and go, okay, I cannot explain this based on current knowledge. I'm going to attempt to gain more knowledge and see if I can explain it. Well, what options do I have here? Well, it's either something we've built or something somebody else has built, or something non-corporeal. It's either corporeal, ours or theirs. Non-corporeal, can't really explain a lot on that, but you start kind of running that mental flow chart of going, okay, I'm not going to just accept that this was written down as this answer. Like, oh, it's a UFO. Clearly it's the Pleiadians. They're going to come and save us all, don't you know? You know, or fill in whatever blank. Oh, it's the reptilians. They're coming to enslave us all. You kind of just start going through this flow chart and going, okay, what's more probable? I'm in an unpopulated area. Is this possibly a government project? Well, most of their stuff, you don't see multiple things acting like that. So maybe it's from off. I don't have enough knowledge to make it, so I'm going to put this in the back burner and see if anything else ties into it as time goes on. And I don't know, I told the girls before we got started, I've been seeing a lot of weird syncs when I log on to Twitter, and one of the consistent ones is thought patterns. I think one thing that we're lacking, much the same way as like, how would a nomadic tribe out in the Amazon describe a helicopter?
Right.
Their words, they just wouldn't have words for it. I think we're moving into an era where we need to develop another form of thought pattern for dealing with this stuff, because you can't really use the logical, illogical, I can scientifically explain this, or I can't sort of dichotomy. I think we need to come up with something other than just binary logic to actually be able to process what we're seeing and experiencing, because looking at the government experimentation from the last 200 years, of trying out every different sort of government based on reason and logical patterns, every one of them's failed. So why would we think that this thought pattern of logical, illogical is going to be the thing that allows us to explain everything, when we can't even explain ourselves to ourselves and we understand what we're talking about?
It's even becoming obsolete in the world of computers, isn't it?
Yeah. Binary is getting questioned.
It's just limiting, isn't it? It's not that it doesn't work. It's just, it's not the sharpest tool that we've got anymore, is it?
Yeah. I mean, a muzzleloader will still take down a deer, but why would I use that when I've got a regular rifle?
And are we really dealing with deer at this point?
I mean, maybe deer aren't.
Deer are cyborgs.
Sasquatch is cyborg pets.
That's why they call him Sasquatch, because it's actually Sasquatch.
Oh. Yeah.
I didn't mean to take a hard left on that one, but you know.
We've gone down that road
Gone
now.
over
Let's
my
go.
head, that.
Yeah. I think, it's like what you were saying essentially is it's the expansion of consciousness. And we talk about when you expand out, you're starting to perceive things that are not, like you said, in the normal space. And there's a lot of talk about, so I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever touched on Dolores Cannon, but she did some regressions, and they spoke about going on board a craft essentially, but the way that they described it, because they didn't have glass at that time, they couldn't understand it, so they had to use the descriptoids that they had to describe seeing through essentially glass, if you believe that. So I can kind of understand it from that perspective.
The conquistadors, their ships were not perceived or perceivable by some accounts. They were not perceivable by the native peoples because they didn't know what they were looking at. But once people came out of them and started walking around the beaches, they could recognize them as people. But before then, it was just they didn't know what they were looking at. So,
yeah, they were coming in and
that's true.
Go on, Kirsten, sorry.
Yeah. Well, I've had that experience when I first started having supernatural experiences. I've had that experience of seeing something and just being like, I can't really process what I'm seeing right now. And it took me, took me a while to actually know what I'm looking at, because it's not.
Yeah, me too.
It wasn't. And so I think that, and I think maybe humanity is in that process right now of looking at the world and saying, wait a minute, okay, I can recognize that this is not something that I recognize, but
we don't know what it is.
What is it?
Can you imagine how difficult it must have been for, say, if there were some people in these Mayan tribes or something who could perceive those ships, and they were jumping up and down and screaming to their chiefs and their elders and things like, "No, I'm telling you, this thing is a problem," and they would have just been like, "I don't see anything. It's just the sea and some trees and stuff."
Everybody else out there like,
yeah.
You're right.
Exactly. I had an experience where I was driving home after work. I'm going back a few years ago, and I was in slow moving traffic, and I looked, and I was like, oh, and there's this huge craft, and it was going across the tops of these trees, and it was like, I don't know if it was just kind of like just taking a chill next to my car, and I was like, oh my god, it's a giant craft, it's a giant thing. What is that? And then I was like, everybody's going to be losing their mind. I was like, and I looked around at the other cars. Nobody was doing anything. They were just like, I want to pull over. Yeah.
I was in a car park one time, to use the English.
Car park. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I would have had no idea what you were.
I know, you wouldn't have known what a parking lot was. So I just make sure
it's just static. When I hear these American terms, I just hear.
I know, right?
It's like cilantro. When I hear cilantro, I just hear. Sorry.
What's cilantro?
It's coriander.
Yeah.
I know. It's outrageous.
Yeah, isn't that usually packaged in aluminum?
Oh, again, static.
Stop the evil space by getting into the fabric of the cilantro.
Anyway, I did not want to hijack Kirsten's story.
Sorry, yeah, we got.
I've always said after Sam's over here like, oh, don't bother me. I was just having a waffle. I think we need to start a panel type podcast and just call it the Waffle Cast.
The Waffle Cast.
I mean, look,
and eat
we're already
waffles.
set up like a waffle.
I would have to eat waffles during that cast.
Yeah, Waffle Factory. We'll call it the Waffle Factory. Coming down to the Waffle
Kirsten,
Factory.
I want to hear your story.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So I'm standing there and I look up and I see this. It looks like a planet, but I'm like, it's not really a planet because it's in the wrong place. And I'm standing there looking at it, and suddenly it just moves really fast. there are all these people in this parking lot. And I look around and I was like, oh my gosh, everybody must be freaking out, just like Sam was. And I look around, nobody saw it. And I think, but it really teaches you something, because you don't see stuff that, like, we know that our perception, what we perceive, is such a very small portion of what's actually out there. And if you're not looking and you're not, what are you aware of? And I think the majority of the population is not aware of all. I mean, I'm not aware of everything that goes on around me. Obviously, none of us are, but some of us are more aware than others.
But we're more aware. We might be more aware that we're not aware, if you see what I mean.
Yeah,
yes,
that makes sense.
That's right. That's it.
We're aware
Yeah.
that it's possible.
Yeah.
We're aware that we are limited, and that there's a possibility that I might have some entity sitting right here next to me. I just can't see him. And honestly, I've loved listening to Al's imagination exercises, because people,
Me too.
that's the thing. Here's something I've noticed with so many people. They get into conspiracy theories. They immediately get into negative ones because, the negative is exciting and hype and all that stuff. And then they stop getting interested in anything else. And they never engage the imagination. They go back to that logical nature of, I want to learn more about this and prove this. And the thing I've learned is the irrelevant is more important than the relevant. The idea that you can create a new thought, that you can create something nobody's ever thought before, or a
They've
mental
been trained
picture
as well,
nobody's
haven't
painted.
they? They've been trained by film, like everything's dystopia and everything's like cyborgs running the world and zero sum universes and that sort of stuff. So,
and it's like, people don't train their imagination to just come up with new stuff, to be able to put themselves in other shoes, and to actually use their brain like that paintbrush and paint whatever they want to. Even with the conspiracy theories, they're only looking at what they're given. And so many people can't expand their creativity to the point where they can just create the irrelevant. It's like I've said before, and I'm sure you've seen the post. I call it the furry test. Close your eyes. You now have a tail. How does it feel? How does it change how you move?
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
What kind of tail is it? It's such a simple exercise, but the fabric of the future is based on imagination. It's a simple exercise. So many people can't do it. They'll ask me details like, well, what kind of tail is it? You tell me. Well, how big is it? You tell me. How fluffy is it? You tell me. What happens when I move left? Where does the tail go?
They need direction. Yeah, they need. Yeah,
it's like it's yours.
But I think that's also why we get so much pushback, because people are agoraphobic. I think in general, they're not comfortable with infinity. They're not comfortable with boundless possibility, and so they're going to push back simply because it freaks them out.
But why does it freak them out? But you've got to ask your question. Like, if you think of this reality, it's like a comfort blanket, isn't it? Because everything's given to you. You don't have to take personal responsibility for that. But when you actually start on your own,
I wish.
Yeah. But for the mind, it is, because when the mind starts to crack open, it's like a very frightening thing. So, like, if you're starting on a shamanic path, for instance, and you start going into non-ordinary reality, you're going to start to see stuff that really starts to break down the perception of what is real and what is possible. But also, when we go back to the imagination, I know you're familiar with this, with the work that you've been doing. Imagination is creation. We say that all the time. It really is, and it's focus and attention. And another thing with the conspiracy theories is it's kind of putting into that almost tentative step of wanting to step out of the box and go, we put our heads up above the parapet, and it's like, let's just have a little peek, and then like, and it's taking that and it's kind of making people go on a certain path, because actually once you start to open up, And if you can move past those initial blocks, you realize you're the creator of your own reality, and whatever you want to do, really. I mean, it's not as simple as going, I'm going to have a cup of tea or lick it to my hand, although I have known people that have done things like that. And that's kind of where we're going. But it's using that power of the collective consciousness to manifest the reality that they want, you know? So they're giving them just enough that they feel like they're making baby steps forward. And then they're getting locked in these like thought loops and these thought traps, like, oh, everything's bad, or, you know, President Trump's going to save us and he's not really orange. It's just a ruse, whatever's in your head. But really, when you start to move past that, the whole point is spiritual development. And that's where the government conspiracy, the UFO conspiracies, because even in UFO, there's a big divide between everything is made by the government, there are no aliens, and there's a there's extraterrestrials or there's interdimensionals, and there's no harmonizing between the two.
But the implications of infinity, this is what I talk about. This is the agoraphobia of which I speak. You know, the implications of infinity are yes to all of it. It's just these are different bandwidths of experience which you can kind of tunnels of reality which you can go down. You know, I mean, yeah. Anyway, I've lost the train of thought a little bit.
At a certain point, you have to be comfortable with not knowing.
Yeah.
True.
I can't explain
really
how this works. And that is the biggest thing that people I see fail on, because you have to be comfortable with the idea that you can know enough, but you don't have to know everything. And people are like, well, I need to know everything. I'm like, okay, tell me exactly how everything on your phone works. You use it every day.
Yeah.
And you explain to me how the screen works, how the processor functions, how it was built. Do you need to understand it all to use it? Well, no, but then go research and you'll be there for 5 years and you'll understand how it works. And well, at that point, you'll have a new phone.
Opportunity wasted then, isn't it? Yeah.
Hey, Kathleen.
Hey,
Kathleen. Yeah.
Who's that?
She's great.
Yeah.
Or
she is awesome. We love you, Kathleen. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Hi.
You know, and it's that, and I think that's what Christ. I think that's what Christ was kind of getting at with faith. It's not. You don't have to understand how this works, but you do have to understand how to work it.
I think you have to understand how yourself, because that's the point, isn't it? It's a mirror.
Yeah.
So, Kirsten.
That itself is an act of faith, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, Mother.
It is. It is. Well, you know, I think it all comes back again. Well, not, and part of it comes back to the educational system, because I was thinking back to when I was teaching 18, 19, 20-year-olds speech class, and the thing that would freak my students out the most, there were two things. I would say, what do you think about this? And they'd be like, well, what's the answer? And I'd be like, you tell me, what's the answer? Well, I don't want to be wrong. And because they've been taught, you know, you have to say the right thing and there's only one right thing.
Yep.
And, you know, it doesn't matter what you think. And the other thing was just picking a topic for their own speeches was difficult for a lot of, well, what do you want me to talk about?
What do you
I
want
don't want you to talk about. Yeah, I want
agoraphobia. You see, agoraphobia. The wide open spaces freak people out. You know. It's like Douglas Adams. Remember that there's that bit in. I don't know if you ever saw the TV series of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but there's the bit where they build Deep Thought, the computer that was supposed to work out the answer to life, the universe, and everything. And these philosophers, just just when they're going to sort of ask the question to this computer, these philosophers come in and then they say, "We demand that you turn that machine off." And they're like, why? What's the problem? And the philosophers are like, well, I'll tell you what the problem is, mate. Demarcation, that's the problem. You know, if any machine actually goes and tells you what the answer to life, the universe, and everything, we're out of a job, aren't we? You know, so we demand rigidly defined areas of doubt and uncertainty, he said, which I thought was absolutely genius writing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure Douglas Adams just exposed his mind to the multiverse and wrote down whatever came through.
Well, apparently he was not really all that sure of himself sometimes, and his editor used to literally snap, because he had a habit of throwing things away. So his editor used to just snatch things, because in those days he was just typing on a typewriter. He used to snatch them and just take them away before he had a chance to throw them away. You know,
That's
Yep.
hilarious.
Thank
That
God.
really is an interesting point, that it is like the mental agoraphobia. Because
I
have a really hard time with a lot of this concept, because even my dad commented when I was a little kid that apparently, in his words, apparently your sense of fear is broken. Like, heights and open spaces and danger never mentally bothered me. And it's like, I don't understand how somebody would be afraid of standing on the rim of a canyon. But I guess mentally, that is kind of the situation. Like, having that big of a thought, you just all of a sudden wake up and you're standing on top of a tree or something. It's like, oh, no, back in my box.
It's like, how the fuck do I get down? I think it's fair, isn't it? I'm going to fall. And that's maybe what you were saying about that before. Like, if somebody comes out with this idea, and going back to Douglas Adams thing, it's like he was so far out ahead of his time. He was so, like, his mind just so expanded that he was, nobody did, well, I'm not saying nobody did, but people didn't understand it. They just thought it was this wackadoodle coming up with these crazy ideas, you know? Because he was years and years and years ahead of his time. And I think that's another thing.
It's just on Radio 4.
It goes back to people policing other people to keep them in the box, you know? And you have to get to a point with the fear where you're like, well, I'm not actually bothered what people think of me, because I'm just going to do what I'm going to do, because that's a real thing as well.
Yeah,
you know,
I think the Agent Smith concept is a very powerful tool as well. I think they're really onto something there, because, and not that it's not like people just go from birth to death being Agent Smiths, but it's like, you know, like Agent Smith can kind of rear his ugly head in anyone's consciousness if the wrong buttons are pressed, you know.
It's like the whole, you shouldn't do that, you should be ashamed of that thought. And I'm like, screw you, I don't care. If you don't like it, don't look.
Yeah, you've got a choice. Look at it or fuck off, basically.
Yeah.
And that's what you've got to get to. You've got to be so sovereign and in your own power. And it isn't like you've got to know. And it's like what Kirsten was talking about, and Kathleen, you know, there's this real fear of failure, but there is no failure. When you leave the beaten path, you're creating your own path. And it's not going to look like anybody else, you know? And that scares the shit out of people, because they're sat in their own box like, oh no, you can't be doing that. Because it shows
slower progress as well, isn't it? You've really got to hack through the dense undergrowth with a machete, haven't you?
It takes determination, you know? It's not the easiest path. But the thing is, once one person's done that, it makes it easier for somebody else to do it. And then the next person, and before you know it, it's another path, you know? And it takes you to a new area where you can go off that beaten path again, you know? And it's this whole interwoven, like, vine of tree branches just growing out. That it's like the synapses in your brain expanding and growing and birthing something new.
Well, you know, I tell my kids that thoughts are like Lego blocks. Information, facts, new concepts, ideas, artwork, all that. Each one of those things is an individual Lego block. The more you have to play with, the better thing you can build. So rather than just throwing out all these thoughts because, oh, I don't know how I'll use those later, collect them. Then you'll have more pieces to play with, and you can make a better thing.
That's really similar to a release I did with Jigsaw. What was it called? Jigsaw's Lego reality and something or other. It's one of those, one of the more recent ones. Yeah, I can't even remember what I called it now.
I haven't caught up on your stuff. I'm sorry, Al. I've kind of been on a fiction.
Don't blame you. You know.
No, don't say that. That's ridiculous. Al's stuff's brilliant. Everybody go check Al's stuff out. He's fantastic writer.
Yeah.
Douglas Adams.
Just came out. The new
Listen,
episode
everyone has got amazing things to say, and honestly, it's just a privilege to even be on here bouncing ideas with you guys. Really, you know.
Well, likewise.
Oh,
we see you, Al. We see you.
We do, and you're
take the praise.
we definitely
I do want to
take a
catch
break.
up with you guys after the show about something too.
Yeah,
Kirsten knows what I'm
So,
talking about.
Oh, I mean, intrigue. It's like we've gone from conspiracy theory to murder mystery. There's Miss Marple around the corner waiting to tell us the truth that's going on. Go on.
Mr. Poirot is far superior.
I fancied Mr. Poirot when I was younger. I am a weirdo.
I was never really into murder mysteries. It never really did it for me. More of a
Me
sword and
neither.
more of a sword and sorcery kind of guy, really. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I was a weird kid. Like when I
No,
yeah,
No,
I
can't
got
do
in
that at all.
trouble in
I'm sure
public
that,
school in
yeah.
3rd grade for obsessively reading Jurassic Park, the Michael Crichton novel,
Hmm.
in 3rd grade, which would have put me at 9 years old. And I kept asking my teachers about, hey, how do you pronounce cytosine? Is that right? She's like, give me the damn book. By 5th grade, Lord of the Rings was done, and by 6th, I was reading the dictionary. So for fun. So these,
Okay,
I'm always looking for more stuff. I was always looking for more things to stimulate me, and
Yeah, we didn't have the internet in those days. Now it's overstimulation,
We
isn't it?
We didn't. And I remember when I first started getting into these things, the first book that I really discovered was at 10 years old. I found Chariots of the Gods, which just,
Eric Van
and
Daniken.
I literally, we had, yes, and we had no internet then, as you know. And so I got the paperback book, and I literally stayed up all night reading that book. And my mom came in, she saw my light on, and she came in and she said, "Are you all right? Are you scared?" And I said, "No, I just read this book." And she said, "Did it scare you?" And I said, "No, I just can't stop thinking. I've got to think more." And it's just, and again, that's what I think one of the great things about conspiracy theories. But I also wanted to take it back about how we were talking about how we don't know anything, and really. And so it's just helping to broaden and broaden and broaden, expand our consciousness. And I was thinking about the tarot deck because the major arcana cards are basically the story of spiritual development. And they start with the 0 card, the Fool. And the Fool is about to step off the cliff into the abyss. So you were talking about standing there looking down, on the lip of the cliff.
I find the Fool the most relatable card.
Yes, it is. Like, I don't know anything, and I'm just gonna walk out into the world, and there's a cliff right here, and I'm just stepping right off it with my little dog.
I'm looking in the wrong direction while I'm stepping off as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking up here.
Be right back.
And yeah, I think that really is, that's the path. It's learning again and again that we don't even know what, and when I first got into conspiracy theories, I was looking for a definitive answer. I was like, I must know.
Well, I suspect most people kind of, because that's what attracts you to conspiracy theories in the first place, isn't it? The desire to know. You have deemed the prescribed answers unsatisfactory, yet so you go looking for other answers, and at first they are more satisfactory than the answers you've been spoon-fed by the mainstream. So that's terribly exciting, isn't it?
Yes.
And then well, of course, I really did binge out on that, because right after I left university, my first job was in a bookshop, and I was running the mind, body, and spirit section of the bookshop, as they used to call it in those days, and that's where they put all the all the spiritual stuff, all the conspiracy stuff, David Icke, Celestine prophecy. There wasn't nearly as much stuff as there is nowadays, but UFO stuff, Eric Van Daniken, all that was there. And there were quieter days when I literally had no customers in that section, and all I had to do, I wasn't getting paid much, but I was getting paid to just read up on these conspiracies, and it was bliss to me. It really opened my mind.
Yeah, that sounds like bliss. I would have loved that. I used to just devour those
£3.73 an
things.
hour. £3.73 an hour wasn't bliss, but apart from that,
No, I,
I still remember my hourly rate 25, well, almost 30 years later. I'm still sore about it.
I don't blame you. It's ridiculous. It's a fucking travesty. Seriously.
Even in 97, it was shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what are, okay, let's do this. What's your favorite conspiracy theory, or what's the one that really brought you in where you were like, wow, that is fascinating?
I would have to say it was probably the one that drew me in the most. Maybe not the first, was probably the pyramids. I always kind of, I mean, I'm not an engineer or anything, but even for my mind, it's like it didn't add up, the whole, the dimensions and the incumbent narrative, and it's like, what, it's like, why don't you just admit you don't know? I know when I'm being kind of bullshitted here. It's like, why don't you just admit you don't know? You've got these things. And then obviously as I got older, I started to crunch a few numbers myself. And so it's like, so you've got this, okay, so what's the volume? 2.5 million cubic meters. Okay, so if you dug a hole in the ground that was 2.5 million cubic meters of hole, and you tipped loose sand weighing 3 to 5 tons of like a 3 to 5 ton, like kind of cube of loose sand in it every 10 minutes, say, using gravity as your ally with just loose sand. You're not mining anything. You're literally just tipping loose sand. It would take you 25 years to fill that, which is 5 years longer than they say it took to build the Pyramid of Cheops against gravity, lined up so perfectly that even Greenwich Observatory is not so perfectly aligned to it. Oh, and by the way, before they had smelted iron, before they had domesticated the horse, before they had invented the wheel, and before they had trigonometry, supposedly.
Yeah.
That really,
that
doesn't add up. It doesn't. There's nothing about it that adds up. It's like they're insulting. I'm amazed that all these academics don't feel that their intelligence is being insulted by this. I'm still amazed.
Yes.
I'm astonished to this day that it's not.
Yeah, and then Marcel Fonti comes up. Oh, go ahead. Did we lose?
Yeah. I was just gonna say, when I was 10 years old, I knew that what they were telling me about the pyramids was bullshit. I wasn't good at math. I'm not an engineer. I was not good at math when I was 9.
Yeah, so if even me with no engineering training, just like kind of a reasonably intelligent guy who's interested and took the trouble to think about it a little bit, I don't hear any adequate explanations for these things. I would dearly love to be convinced that somehow, without the wheel, without the horse, without iron, and without trigonometry, they were able to mine these sandstone things, transport them at a rate of 3 to 5 tons every 10 minutes for 20 odd years, and then like sort of put them. And then I sort of thought, what if we had Lego? So if we had like 2.5 million pieces of Lego, right? And we put those bits of Lego, like how many seconds? It's like if we did one every 10 seconds, it would still take us. No, if we did one every second, it would take us 4 weeks if we never had any break and knew exactly where to place everything with pieces of Lego. Yep. It's like, are you kidding me? It's like, what? Why aren't these people embarrassed to be actually selling us this shit?
It's easier to come up with an item, but easier than to say that you don't know. That's the thing.
That's right.
When they start to say, I do not know, it removes their authority.
And people, but the thing is, people
That's true.
automatically, because I've obviously had this discussion a few times, with I did my master's in anthropology, which is kind of, it's often the same. It's like here, it was the same as the archaeology department, archaeology and anthropology. So I had the leisure of discussing these things with a few like PhDs, and the thing is, they automatically think, oh, so you think it's aliens then? It's like, I didn't say that. That's not the point.
Right?
That's not the point. Stop trying to deflect. Explain to me how, and it's like, well, clearly, you obviously, you don't know what they were able to do 4,000 years ago. And I was like, that's the point. We don't. And yet all these people say we do. They're all saying, oh yes, it was built by and all, and it was they had very big whips, very, very big whips. Is that really?
Yeah.
It gives you the false dichotomy, doesn't it? Because you can either have one or the other, and one's it's so apparently absurd that it keeps you in the box. Because what you're looking for, like we were saying before, is some relative normalcy that you can wrap your brain around. Not all, but they could have had actual technology, because they don't want you to know that there was the rise and fall. In my opinion, this is kind of my thing.
That's a reasonable narrative to suggest, to fill in the huge gaping chasm of logic that we've got here. Given that conspiracies are replete in human history, it's not that unreasonable to actually come up with a narrative like that, is it?
Well, I mean, think about if we had lost the recipe and knowledge of how to make concrete, and then we look at the Hoover Dam. How do you think somebody would explain how that was built? Yeah,
exactly.
Like, just because you're missing one piece of information, concrete.
It must be a pretty impressive piece of information, though, to have done something like that.
I was going to say the issue is there's what I was saying about the Greenwich thing. The precision that it's cut, they still can't get this the exact, and it's like the sarcophagus, or apparently sarcophagus, or whatever in the pyramids. The precision that it's been cut, they still can't get it exactly with the diamond laser.
Any one of the four, it's like, okay, they did domesticate the horse. Okay, so you've got the horse. You still don't have iron, you still don't have the wheel, and you still don't have trigonometry.
Did you see the work
how
myself?
How are horses going to haul those blocks?
How
many horses would you need to haul one of those blocks?
That's what I mean. You can be generous and say, okay, so you messed up about when they domesticated the horse in that particular part of the world. Maybe they did it a couple of thousand years earlier. I'll give you that one. I'm feeling magnanimous. You can have the horse.
Good of you.
How did you like? Listen, you can't even do it with Lego in time, mate. The horse is not going to cut it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marcel Foti says that he's pretty sure they did it with buckets, because you can. He's reverse engineered how to make artificial granite with technology.
I've seen that. Yeah.
And he's
I've seen that.
It would need to be a phenomenally good explanation about how you did that with a bucket. That's what I'm saying. It's like, who am I to? I don't know shit.
He's like,
the granite. The way that he reverse engineered granite isn't going to be doable, though, because of the time and the energy and the things it takes.
The volume
so
of
that's
it.
Still not going to cut that. But what it's actually saying is, it proves that we don't know all that we know.
That's
my
point. In theory, with what they had, they could make this, and they probably did make other stuff with this technique. But even though I've demonstrated that they could have done it, and they had the materials to do it, and they had the location to do it, and they had the capability to do it, he's like, I'm still getting laughed at because you can't make artificial rock. He's like, motherfucker, we have concrete. That's artificial rock.
Yeah, right.
He's like,
Seriously,
I made a stone Xbox controller in my backyard by making artificial rock, passing it into the deal, and making the imprints in it. Here you go. Here's the recipe.
Apparently, even the implications of that are too much for them to be able to get down off there. It's like, no. They really were that primitive. They really didn't have even the horse, or they were still only smelting bronze or copper or whatever at the time, and they didn't have trigonometry. But then, of course, you've got Göbekli Tepe has smashed that to pieces as well.
Well, exactly. exactly.
Yeah,
And there's other
well,
places in, like, not just the Turkish thing, is there? There's the other thing, like the big like they're like pyramids, basically, like big mounds, the pyramids, and
all over
they're
the
all
shop.
buried
They're finding
underneath.
them, yeah, they're
In
finding them under the
Ethiopia or
water.
somewhere.
They're finding
Yeah.
them all over the shop. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
why
yeah, yeah.
in my lavelatorium.
I live on a fucking pyramid. I'm not even kidding. I live
Cool.
on top of one. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
They say it's the foothills of the Ozarks. It's a freaking pyramid. If you hike down this hill, you can see the brick. And I'm like, they're everywhere. Well, it's funny though, because it's that not knowing. It's like, well, we can't say we don't know. I had this huge discussion. My sister, who is a science teacher, and then her fiance, who is also a scientist, about the pyramids. And I said, well, we don't know how they built them. Yes, we do. And I was like, no, that's bullshit. It's ridiculous. Then they sent me this article that said that they built the pyramids by flooding the whole Giza plateau, and they floated the blocks up. And I'm like, really? They're like, see, we do know how we did it. And I'm like,
but can I just say, so going on to another conspiracy theory, which is a bit like that. So it's like the flat earth thing, and they use all these theories that people they don't understand. So unless you've got an astrophysics background or whatever, you understand advanced mathematics, you're not in the position to even say, well, I don't even know if this is true or not. And that's what they do. They use the illusion of information
this tends to trip them up. It's like, how come I'm not even saying that the 3D oblate spherical Earth is a perfect model. I'm open-minded to that, but I put forward that it is actually a superior. It's just a more elegant solution to go with what we observe. For example, if a flat Earth model was able to say predict like an eclipse, say 500 years from now, or even 50 years from now, or 5 years from now, with minute precision, and explain how it actually works with a sort of 2D model, then I'd actually have a bit more time for it. But it can't do that. So even though I can't do the maths either, or what we do observe is that consistently the people who can predict when eclipses happen, for example, are people who are using a heliocentric model. Again, that might also be incomplete in the same sense that Newton's theories of gravity were incomplete, or they're kind of very, very useful as tools, but they have their limitations. And I even did an article about that, and I said, well, what if the actual shape of the Earth is however many dimensions that the universe is? If the universe is 10-dimensional, then the Earth is presumably a 10D shape, and we can. There was a long time we could only perceive it in 2 dimensions, and then we kind of evolved and were able to see it in 3 dimensions, and sooner or later we're going to be able to see it in 5 dimensions. And so I invented a name for that, and I called it the Quimble phase. It's like, so Earth is that we should be going up dimensions, not down them. That's just my take in it anyway.
I like that. It's good. But
So what is wrong with the direction up? Up is a legitimate direction. There's no real reason there's no good reason I've heard why forwards, backwards, left and right are infinitely expansive dimensions, but up, that's problematical. Oh no, that only goes. You can only do that for a few hundred. It's kind of just water and stuff. No, we're not.
It's
having
only
that.
a few hundred blocks.
Agoraphobia. Yeah, it's agoraphobia again.
in perspective, because we don't tend to look up, do we either?
You can function with that model. You're welcome to that narrative. Listen, the 3D narrative is probably inadequate, or it will become increasingly inadequate in time as well. Just like they said, when they built planes and went up in the sky, some people were really disappointed that they didn't find dead relatives on clouds playing harps and things like that. Well,
they could still be up there.
Expand. Yeah.
I mean, we're getting into like multidimensionality now, aren't we? And things existing at the same space that we all are, and it's to do with vibration and frequency.
Sure, but
And I think that's a
we
good-
frame these things. We frame these things in terms of what we can actually do and what we can actually achieve. Now it's no big deal to go above the clouds. That's not a satisfactory kind of.
Yeah, because it's the expansion of consciousness again. So you've expanded your purview. So what was once unknown and speculative can now be observed. It's the expansion of the observable universe, isn't it? Which is what we were talking about, I think. And yeah, so that's
Yeah.
where we're
Yeah,
going with
right.
it, really, isn't it? But then it's also knowing that the observable universe is a tiny little snapshot. I mean, lots of people talk about this, but the whole spectrum of the light spectrum, we can only perceive visibly and audibly a very limited bandwidth of that. And when you start to expand that, there's going to be other shit going on that you just can't perceive.
This is why I do laugh when you get people who say, that you get your hardcore reductionist materialists who say, yes, I agree that 99.996% of the universe is completely invisible, even to our, it might be 96, whatever, but 90 odd percent of our universe is completely imperceptible, even to our augmented technology. Yes, we agree with that, but don't you dare tell me that there's such a thing as a God. Absolutely, yes, I do agree that I'm 99.6% blind. Yes, we've got all the science, but I'm in a room. There's no door in this room. Don't tell me there's a door in this room. Yes, I am 99.6% blind, but doors? I can't see any evidence of a door. Absolutely ridiculous. How ridiculous can you be?
It's the blind man and the elephant.
Yeah.
Blind man and the elephant. They're all feeling the elephant, and they feel something different, and are arguing that their way is right.
But it's kind of worse than that, because they actually agree and publish papers saying that they are almost entirely blind, and yet they still have this towering certainty about what does and doesn't exist, and what can and can't. No, I mean, I'm talking to a lot of them do, with many honourable exceptions, of course, but
a few honourable exceptions.
Okay.
What I'd like to say, just quickly, the people that are blind are probably more likely to accept things because they know they can't see, and they've accepted that.
You'd think so. But the thing is, it's like, we know, but that can't exist because Yes, we are.
Well, it can't exist because our funding demands that it not exist, so we can still look for it. If
it's too empowering for the individual, it's terribly bad for business.
You look at how much science thrives when there's no financial incentive to it. If you just let the guys in the shed have their fun and experiment, they find stuff. When they don't, when you tie them to a paycheck, they suddenly stop finding anything.
Well, they're not allowed to, are they? Like you said. Oh, he's gone.
Yeah.
But
that's why, you hear a lot of trust the science. It's like science is a wonderful tool, but it's an abstract noun. And as an abstract noun, it doesn't say anything. It has no voice. Its voice is actually given through scientists, and scientists are human beings, and they are vulnerable to the normal foibles of mankind's weaknesses, and little
the limitations,
peccadillos, and all sorts of things, and
their own internal struggles,
And I think
Go on, Nick.
I think at a certain point, and like I've said before, we're getting into an era where we can't rely on the old thought patterns and language. Like the quantum physicist Richard Feynman was famously quoted as saying, when someone asked him if he understood quantum physics, he said no. And anybody who does is lying to you. And he was the guy who basically pioneered the field. He's like, I don't understand it, but I understand how to work with it.
Was he also the one who said, shut up and calculate?
Actually, he was the one that famously, he had a big ass 70s brown van, and he would write out his calculations on the side of it, because if he said, if I can't get my calculations small enough for you to read it when I'm going down the freeway, I need to work on it further.
Wow, that's hardcore.
And they actually found the van and restored it. He'd just take chalk and
It
start
ap-
writing
did
on the side
Is
of his
that the one?
van.
It appeared in Big Bang Theory at some
Yeah.
point, didn't it?
The
Yeah,
big brown ugly van.
yeah, that's it. I saw that one. Yeah.
But
I mean, that was great until it rains.
he lived in Southern California. When does it rain?
I don't know. I've never been to Southern California, but apparently they're all
I know
crazy.
that there's a song that says it never rains, but it does pour. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
it
all I know
does
about that.
actually, because I've been in Southern California when it was pouring.
Yeah.
It's similar in Crete. I lived in Crete, the island of Greece, for 3 years, and they say that's a very similar climate to Southern California, and it's
Yep.
kind of similar there. It's you go there in the summer, it doesn't rain at all, but if you're not a tourist and you actually live there and you're there in the winter, bloody hell.
Now, Missouri
Would
is
you-
nice because
yeah.
you can get all 4 seasons in one day if you hang around long enough. So,
Oh, you get
Yeah,
that in Britain
well,
a lot.
but I like how Feynman looked at it, where he was a scientist, but he didn't get hung up on the I know part of science. He was like, I understand what I understand out of it, and I will continue to try to understand more, but I will never tell you that I understand it. And I think that's the paradigm that
Great
science
attitude.
needs to shift into, instead of going, I have done this research, therefore I know. It's like, no, I understand what I see currently. If I can see more or have new ideas, everything is completely just based off this point, this perspective, and this information. And that's a mentality that we have to shift the entirety of human existence towards, because right now, we've all heard the old adage of what is measured gets managed. You look at governments, what can they measure? Well, they measure the GDP, so they manage the GDP. Does that have well, but I mean, with the kerfuffle going on with Boris bringing in all the immigrants, well, that'll help the GDP numbers because more people, more GDP, right? Cool, exactly.
And voters.
That works.
Lovely
Exactly.
voters.
Now, I'm not
Somebody
getting
said
into a
actually,
politics
sorry, just
rant
to cut
on
you off.
this.
Somebody said that statistics are actually the worst thing ever because they can be so manipulated. You can make them say anything.
Do you remember there was a Guinness advert, Sam, about 10 years ago or so, which said 88.2% of statistics are made up on the spot. It just tickled me because it was so precise. It's like, did you know that 88.2% of statistics are made up on the spot?
I can't remember that one, but I do know they had some pretty clever adverts. They were very, very funny, weren't they?
Yeah.
Well, so they're
yeah,
fiddling with GDP because that's something that can be measured. How do you measure the happiness of a country? I mean, when the country gets unhappy because pitchforks and torches come out. Right. When the country's happy, but how do you measure the happiness of it? Well, we can't measure the happiness, so GDP is the next best thing. It's how productive it is.
You create a happiness tsar in the government, and then the happiness tsar sends his goons to knock on the door and then say to them, say to them with studded fist in hand, how happy are you? Are you happy with your government?
Boy, Mike, are you happy?
So nursing, I was doing a research thing, and there's something called qualitative and quantitative research. So your quantitative is the very specific stuff that's measurable in a way that's in scale, and then your qualitative is a feeling, thoughts, emotion, experiential study that you do. So it's more like thoughts and feelings. So it can still be measured, but the scale isn't as precise, I think. Is really
I had to justify that. Like when I was doing my MA, I had to, because anthropology is one of these things that sort of stands in the middle. It's like it's like some of them want it to be more scientific and some of them want it to be more qualitative, like you say. And you better have a good read. It's like I always wanted to do kind of qualitative essays and things, and it's like, well, you better make your case then, because
it's more difficult to do that though. I mean, especially if you're setting up a research project and you're trying to do it within the scope and the bandits and get approval for like funding and whatnot. Because if you're doing a rigorous science, if you're doing a quantitative one, it's like, well, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to measure it. This is how we're going to measure bias, blah, 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 blah. Or the other one, it's like, well, what are you actually wanting to achieve from it, really? You know?
Yeah.
So there's lots of more variables, I would say. Yeah, but it's more
Gave him
fun.
a load of Carl Jung. I just gave him a load of Carl Jung. That's
what you want to do.
Make him back off a little bit, yeah.
Throw the book at him. The red book.
Oh, yeah. You can find it. It's really hard to find that.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. I love digging through local
a
used
physical
bookstores.
copy, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to
I
find
thought I was
it.
going to say it on Audible, but yeah, the physical one. I didn't realise it
Audible,
was.
they started editing.
Was it released posthumously, the Red Book?
Say again?
Was it released posthumously, the Red Book, Carl Jung's Red Book?
That I can't remember.
Maybe. But I'll tell you one thing, though, about Carl Jung. It's like my mum's Swiss. I'm half Swiss. And she's actually, her mother was a diagnosed schizophrenic. And she actually lived in the village just 4 miles or kilometers, actually, down from the lake where he actually did his practice. So we can't prove it, but it's highly, especially in those days when there wasn't that much psychoanalysis going on.
Yeah.
There's a very strong chance that my grandmother was a patient of his, or perhaps a patient of one of his underlings. You know, we can't be sure about that, but I mean, you know, just looking at the location is so close, so close to where he lived. Yeah. Anyway.
Amazing. I knew you were going to say diagnosed schizophrenic. I was like, oh.
What's that?
Sorry, I had a bit of a psychic moment with that. I went a bit cross-eyed. Go on.
Well, yeah, it's anyway. So it is what it is. It's just like it's one of these things where it's a point of interest, but it's not really anything that I can concretely say. But
But it's interesting when you talk about
But
field.
But I said it anyway, so there you go.
Well, it's all right. It's out in the observable universe now, isn't it? It's a seed that's been planted and will grow within the quantum field, and you maybe invited some synchronicity. Then, yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, I've ruined to do that. I'll just drop a bomb and then everybody goes. Just doing it again, and they're back. Somebody goes back.
I was just thinking, I should just shut up for a minute now.
No,
I think we all simultaneously.
It's not what you want to hear on a podcast. Yeah, we'll invite you on a podcast. We're just going to be quiet now. No, we're not in a library. We're on a podcast. Come on now.
See, there's
lots of matron in the corner with a ruler going.
See, culturally, I think we've lost the ability to explain the qualitative in language, because you can ask the girls. I went on a very, very deep rabbit hole about philosophy here about a year ago, to the point I burned myself out and I had to spend about 6 months off of research. It was pretty rough. Basically, our modern world has been framed by the Enlightenment philosophy, and everything in there had to be rational, had to be logical. Thus, the qualitative completely fell out of the collective consciousness, because you cannot have logically qualitative. You can have logical quantitative easily. I mean, as I said, you can measure GDP, but how do you measure happiness? Well, it can't stand up to reason, because reason requires logic. Now, older traditions, there was an ancient Persian tradition where if any decree was going to be made, any governmental edict, it had to be debated with the king and his counselors sober and completely drunk.
Yeah.
Because if you're sober, you can debate the logical end of it because you're thinking clearly. You remove that ability to think logically, and now you're debating the feeling of it. Because have you ever had a drunken debate? Yeah, it doesn't go with logic.
Well, but this is really why in the old days, people a lot of cultures used to refuse to do business with someone until the day after the night before. They'd ply you with a few drinks. They want to know who you really are, who you're doing business with. Alcohol served a sort of mask off function, you know. And of course, some people would then say, "Oh, I don't drink at all." It's like, that's fine. We're not going to force you to drink. But then the business dealings would be a bit more guarded because of that. Yeah,
Absolutely.
And
I just want to say though, before you go, Nick, I'm quickly cutting in. When we were talking about the measurement of scale, the quantitative or the felt scale, you have to measure it in connection to other things, I think.
precisely.
So it isn't a linear scale. It's how does it impact the world around you?
that's why time's problematic, because there's nothing to measure it against.
Well,
The sun, no.
it's an individual
1 second per
thing.
second. We're moving forward in time by at a rate of 1 second per second. That's a meaningless statement.
Yeah.
You know, all other measurements are measured against something else.
You can't
Wait.
measure somebody's feelings on a macro scale. Your feelings are individually yours. I can't take the feeling of the country because, I mean, America's 5,000 miles wide, give or take a little bit. I can't encompass all the cultures, subcultures, regions, enclaves, and guys camped out in the middle of 500 square miles in the middle of Wyoming. But I can ask Kirsten her thoughts. How do you feel about this? And, you know, I've been trying to figure out how we could have, because you do need some form of government, some form of, you know, ability to dispute, to reconcile disputes. You do
Well,
need
it's
to have
subjective
somebody.
experience, isn't it? It's subjective on experience. So
It is.
that's people's framing. So you're going to have 10 farmers that are pissed off that you've made it really difficult for them to grow apples. And that's going to be like, well, they're clearly unhappy, and you're going to be able to rationalise why. And that's the rationality, isn't it?
We used to have elders for that kind of thing, and you could say, you know, obviously we still have judges and things like that. But the problem is, it's all very subject to when you've got a big, mighty civilization, you know, like able to kind of generate, you know, stupendous amounts of power and wealth, and you know, there's a lot of temptations there, you know.
Well, it goes into the justice system, doesn't it? Sorry, Nick, 1 second. I am being chatty now. I'm looking over you. Yeah. So when you talk about the justice system, and they go and they have these debates about things like euthanasia and these real moral concepts, they have to take a judgment on how that they take a slice on what's going on within the general consensus, hopefully, and then it's a reflective outlook on that. But there's no right or wrong reason, because it's a moral issue, isn't it? A lot of the time. So this is the thing where you're trying to impose a rigid structure on something that's moral or subjective, and that's the issue with government. And we talked about the Vogons and the red tape and things like that. It's like, no, my grandma's dying and I need this quick resolution, which is coming from a heart-centered place. It's like, oh, the compassionate human response would be X, Y, and Z, because you can see this person in pain, whatever's going on. Yeah, and then from the red tape governmental structure, it's like, well, we must do it this way, and we must go through all these measures, and blah 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 blah. And it's dehumanizing the human experience to put it in the books, and that's where it falls down, I think. Is that kind of what you were getting at, Nick?
Yes. But that's all based off of rules, or it's all based off of laws, which are rational, which are you broke it or you didn't. It's all based off of, hey, you're going to send a representative up there who's going to do this. Okay, the 51% of people voted for him, less in certain areas. I said, well, how could we work this rigid system into a more flexible one? Well, concept. Let's say we have, you know, your House of Parliament, you've got a representative who goes there from your community. They vote to present a bill of, hey, we need to pave these roads. Just pulling one out. That is presented to the people who, thanks to our modern technology, we can actually do this. It's going to cost, let's say, $500,000 to pave these roads. Let the people fund the project. You have taken the government who said, hey, we need this. Here's all the details. Present it to the people. If the people want to pony up the money to pay it, to do it, it gets done. If it's like, hey, we want to build a gay rights clinic in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, ain't nobody signing off on that shit. It's going to cost us $10 million to do it. We got $15. Okay, doesn't happen.
Well, that's kind of like local based control, isn't it? Like local based.
Probably was like that at first, and these things only very, very gradually get eroded away, don't they? You know, and they get eroded away because conflicts of interest are very, very difficult to police against. You know, deals get made in the dark, in the shadows.
Well, it's centralised government, isn't it? That's the problem. You've got one. This is the issue, and then they spill. You know, you get one centralised government for the whole of Britain or UK.
Doesn't work.
And then they have these devolved governments, but then they're still kind of acquiescing to the main power structures. But then you've got in England, you know, you've got counties, and then they've tried to like offload the decision-making process of a lot of things to local councils, but not funded them. And it's like it doesn't work that way. Whereas if you've got a regional space that's completely confined and that's what they're dealing with, you then have the infrastructure and the resources in hand to deal with the local problems, because it's going to be different for different areas, isn't it?
Right, yeah.
It's like you're talking about the road.
Instinctively just run away from centralization of power, you know. This is I found it very difficult when all the Brexit business was going on. It was, as you know, Sam, it was a big topic about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was already living I was already living away from Britain, and people assumed that I would be very pro pro Remain because I was already living and working in the European Union. It's like no, it's like I don't want more centralization of power. I want less centralization of power. And they're like, yeah, but it would inconvenience you. You'd have to go and like sort of. It's like, yeah, I would. So it would inconvenience me. Yeah, and it did inconvenience me. I had to go to some local authority office and pay €72 and show a few papers, and then I got the right to live and work here for 10 years. You know, whoop-de-doo. Yeah, but people just they don't know how to, they thought here's a surefire ally,
well, that's the convenience argument, isn't it? That's how they sell it to you, through convenience. But actually, when you look at the broader scope, you look at wanting to take on the EU's currency, and it's like that would have been a fucking nightmare, because then you've signed into all the IMF bollocks, aren't you? Not that I know loads about it, but it's the insidious nature, like we were saying. EU representatives aren't voted in.
They fudge the boundaries between, in this case, they fudge the boundaries between Europe and the EU. It's like, how can you be anti-Europe? It's like, I'm not anti. How can you say I'm anti-Europe? I've lived in Europe for the last 14 years. It's like, yeah, but you're not a Remainer. It's like, yeah, because I don't like the EU.
Just because we need the EU doesn't mean we're going to need Europe.
We've been part of Ukrainian
years,
Can you parcel that around your noggin? The EU.
I like
and
Europe, but I don't like
same
Brussels.
thing. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what they do. They lump everything together, and that's where people's thought processes can't expand out of that, because they can only see what they can see. And it goes into people not taking fucking responsibility for the things that they're dealing with. And that's the problem with politics. It's like, oh, that's not my problem. We don't let them deal with that. And they vote for things that they've got no idea what they're voting for. If you're going to vote for something, fucking understand it. And it's done deliberately to obscure the knowledge so people can't get at that, I've had a conversation, and I've really been out of it for a very long time. But I used to be really big on politics, obviously, because I love to talk and debate, because that's just what I do. And I was like, and they'd be like, but they just didn't have a fucking clue.
I would love the transcript of your debate there, Sam.
I'm Dr. Zoidberg in debating. Do you understand the EU?
See, I've had a little bit of an interesting ability to explain to see how stuff works and doesn't. I played MMOs for years, and one of the ones I played was called EVE Online, where
I know it.
It is It is a hideously complicated game, but it all takes place on one server. Every player outside of China, every player worldwide plays on the same server. It is the best example of how governments work, because you've got a situation where anybody can go to any different alliance that they want to simply as moving. There's no hard boundaries. You can go wherever you want. The two ways that people will get membership, will get people to join them, are stability and enjoyment. People will offer either the stability and the security at the expense of taxes, or enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can make a coalition that has a common culture where everybody kind of is on the same on the same page, enjoys being there, and it's convenient, people will vote to stay, not with ballots, but with their presence. They will support it, and you will make an incredibly solid, stable unit. And the thing is, being a game, it's all voluntary. You don't have to join them. But these guys are the most stable ones. And currently, nobody really has a choice of what government they're part of. You know, if you guys want to leave the UK, you can't just up and leave. You need to go to another country. And to go to the other country, they have to accept you. There's no option.
You've got to be well, you've got to have something that's going to.
I like how you said at the
country.
moment, because I think this is definitely leading somewhere. And yeah, anyway, please.
I think that in the future, you're going to have cultural communities.
I've had similar thoughts. Yeah.
I'm never going to be confused for being British. You know, I worked for 4.5 months in Ireland, and people would look at me and go, "Oh, Yank." Why? I was wearing jeans. Literally, it was that simple. They could look at jeans and a ball cap and go, "American." I couldn't even fit in without opening my mouth. But there are people, I would love to go spend some time there, learn about your culture. I know that there are Brits who just love American culture. Well, why couldn't we trade freely? But if you're going, what we need to find out is a way to make a system that will resolve disputes on a common cultural level. You know, you can recognize an American anywhere in the world. But
it's like a subscription to a certain manifesto, then, wouldn't it? Instead of like, you know, instead of this is where I geographically am located, therefore I have to subscribe to this.
And I just float though the idea that you'd need a singular world government, because there's still going to have to be an element of control, isn't there? And that would be moving towards the one world government.
That's what they're going. Yeah, that's how they're going to try and sell it.
Yeah,
but it needs to be that way.
I don't think
so.
I don't think that a one world government is at all necessary. I think that we do need the ability for people to go anywhere, to do anything. But if you're going to go there, you become part of them. Like, I know Americans who have moved to Japan. They've learned Japanese. They understand Japanese culture. Yes, they're a 6'2" gaijin who's always going to be a 6'2" gaijin over there. But they had the respect to learn the culture, the customs, the language, and how you do things. If somebody is willing to become, or at least appreciate the fact that they're essentially the guest in somebody else's home.
Absolutely, yeah.
They are welcome. You know, we have foreigners that move to the States all the time. I worked with some guys from Kazakhstan. Like, they spoke 31 letter Cyrillic. They are that are Slavic hillbilly. We love going float trip. We love shoot shotgun. It's wonderful country. Slavic as hell, hillbilly as all could get. They were the most redneck guys you've ever met. We called them our redneck Russians. They got pissed at us because we are not Russian.
Oh no, they're not. No, yeah,
I'm
they're
just
up there
saying, you're not Russian.
influenced by the Soviets, obviously. You know, I almost got a
But
job. Well, I got
they
offered a job just last year in
Loved
neighboring.
American culture. They came here and learned English. We treated them just like our Slavic rednecks. We loved them. They were great. They weren't immigrants. They were Americans who were learning how to be American.
They had the
And
right soul, the right spirit, the right
yeah,
attitude. Yeah.
and that I think is something the entire world can appreciate. And that could very well be the key to world peace, by letting people go where they want to be. As long as they realize that the host culture is the host culture, and you are only welcome there as long as you are willing to be part of that culture.
It's just common
And
sense, isn't it?
you'd think,
Yeah, yeah, you'd think.
but everybody
Yeah.
worldwide,
It
if you
kind of,
go,
but
hey,
we've regressed in that way. It was a little bit more like that, you know. I mean, you know, I mean, this is just a small anecdotal example, but you know, when I was a kid and we used to drive, you know, like drive down to Switzerland for our summer holidays, like in Dad's clapped out old Austin Maxi, you know, with a green box on top, and we'd have to. Every country we passed through had its own, you know, had its own currency and things like that, and we'd hold this big leather bag with all these currencies he'd already, so he could buy the petrol. It's like, you know, the country would change every couple of hours, so we'd need Dutch guilders, we'd need Belgian francs, we'd need French francs, we'd need German Dutch marks, we'd need Swiss francs, you know, just in a journey that was only like sort of 12 hours once you got to the continent, you know. It was absolutely, or if you wanted to stop for a hot dog or something, yeah. It's like, what country? Oh, we need guilders. We need, you know.
You know, and honestly, that would be an easy enough solution if everybody would just go to agreeing, you know, 1 ounce silver coin. You could have a worldwide currency, just have it be a universal amount of a precious metal, and it kind of won't matter who or where. I work in a steel shop. I don't know if you've ever seen them or not, but the non-destructive testing guns. It's a big like old school Star Trek phaser looking thing, like the original series phaser. And you put this thing up against a metal, pull the trigger, it goes beep, and it gives you a chemical analysis readout of what's in there. And it is very detailed. We can take a box of scrap steel and go bleep.
So you don't need to bite the coins like they used to in the old days.
You can just have a scanner and scan, this is 304 stainless, this is 308 stainless, this is 316, this is C22. It'll just tell you what grade it is up there. You could literally have a scanner in a gas station and just be like, bleep.
In that case, why limit it to silver? It's like whatever raw material you've got. It's like, here, what's this worth on the market?
But
I've got this nugget of cadmium here. You know, what's that worth?
You could. Well, it does need to be enough to where you can scan it. You know.
All right.
But like, you could quite literally have somebody. You could just have, you know, the rounds. Bleep. Slide under the scanner. Oh, silver. Okay. I need 2 of those for your tank of gas. You could do a one world currency in that direction.
I mean, of course, you know, then there's, if we're talking conspiracy theories again, or if we're going back to them again, you know, that there is the argument that we don't have a problem of lack. You know, it's
we don't.
It's a distribution issue. You know, we've been, you know, if we're talking about the human race, you know, we kind of have been ripped off quite a lot for the last at least 100 years, but probably several hundred years, possibly thousands of years. You know, and wealth, a stupefying, incalculable, astronomical amount of wealth has probably been ferreted away by these non-existent people who don't exist in this non-existent conspiracy world, because there are no conspiracies, and I mean,
Exactly.
let's suppose that kind of becomes available again. Would we even need to worry about having nuggets of, I know I'm being facetious, but nuggets of cadmium in our pockets or whatever,
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I think that's a really
eventually we won't. I think eventually there will be a general flow of knowledge, trade. I mean, if you think about it, the world works perfectly fine without money. If everybody on the face of the planet still went and did what they did on a daily basis and never got paid, it would still run.
They wouldn't know, would they?
If everybody, if the financial system dissolved and it was like, hey, you're no longer getting paid, but if you just keep doing what you're doing, everything will keep running. Would it?
I mean, I think the people who do the important stuff, like, the people who make things and do things and keep things running. Yeah, absolutely. What about the rest of us, though?
Well, I mean, the only people who would be completely up shit creek would probably be the bureaucrats, but they don't do anything anyway.
They don't.
The Vogons of the world, like the clerks in government bureaucracy, wouldn't care about them. And frankly, I don't think anybody'd miss the DMV.
If we're producing as a species enough wealth or enough whatever to keep our Maslow needs met, then if anybody needs to work in order to, or pay to be here, then someone's being ripped off somewhere, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean,
don't ask who the government debt is owed to.
Well, isn't that an issue of like enlightenment, though, like levels and scales of social enlightenment? Because you move past the need of base level needs, and everybody's at a certain frequency of consciousness where they can see that there's enough stuff going around, and that the desire to be in control and power just for the sake of power has been dissolved. So you're meeting people where they are on. It's like a spiritual renaissance in a way. Like, it's to bring in the creativity and the advancement of humanity in a spiritually aligned way. So it goes hand in hand like a sister relationship. And it's moving past this need where people need to be told what to do. And that's kind of what I feel like we're in at the moment. We're in the training wheel state where people have to be at a certain level of moral consciousness to be able to accept that.
I agree. And we're moving past, when we were talking about qualitative versus quantitative. So if everyone brings their own quality and their own gifts to the table, and if we can respect the gifts that everyone brings and say everyone is worthy of having a decent lifestyle and having their not just their needs but also their wants met, and it doesn't matter, like, if you've worked 8 hours today to produce this, maybe you have, and that's awesome, but maybe you've spent a few hours considering and a few more hours writing it down, for instance, because of course Al is a brilliant writer, and that is something that we currently don't have enough value for, in my opinion, because like Sam was saying, all of these creative people, what do you bring? It's wonderful. It's something we need. Talking about going past, just, how are you saying it, Nick?
You're going past the basic needs and into the realm of what society actually wants. A writer, an artist, a creator, everybody can contribute. And if you are actively contributing to your culture, you should be valued for it. Like, I build stuff nobody's ever heard of. Most people have no idea what a bioreactor is, what it does, or what it produces. I like what I do. I enjoy turning rough steel into shiny steel. I would still do this if I wasn't getting paid. I enjoy the work. And what I build contributes to making the equipment that creates pharmaceuticals. That is a good thing, not the pharmaceutical companies, and don't get me on that damn soapbox. But what I'm producing contributes to society, even if nobody has any idea. Now, as I'm working on my stuff, I'm listening to audio recorded by people who were creating stories. They are contributing to my life. They deserve their contribution to be recognized, because they're not contributing to society, the structures and systems. They're contributing to culture, the things that we actually are living in. Al is every bit as valuable in his contributions to the culture that I live in as my work is toward the physical, tangible stuff that the society needs so the culture keeps running.
Only because we're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And
but we have to recognize we are. Yeah,
I mean,
we are.
Let's say even if we just tomorrow started building nuclear reactors everywhere. Hey, look, electricity's free. We're going to electric cars. Cool, because the electricity's free. All you're paying is, upkeep on the lines. And honestly, a lot of the guys I know would be like, yeah, I'll do my lineman work for free if I don't have to pay my electric bills. Cool. Okay.
Is that not going towards like the idea of, do we have to work as much as we're working though? Because it's kind of going into that realm of, this is what we've got to do. And it's saying, well, if we condense the amount of time that we're working, because we could feasibly do that. And
like I said,
yeah,
if you don't have the bills, how much more would you write, Al, if you didn't have bills to pay?
This is it. And I also think that's a good point. And I also think that nature literally kind of generates enough people to make a perfect balance. It's all the harmony is there in nature, I mean, and so if we left humanity to its own devices and didn't keep forcing square pegs into round holes and round pegs into square holes where everybody's miserable, not everybody, but too many people are miserable doing the kind of work they don't really want to do or they don't believe in, or it's soul destroying and things like that, sooner or later it's going to equalize, or it's going to equilibrate, and we're just going to have enough people who want to do the stuff you want to do, Nick, and people who want to do what Kirsten wants to do and what Sam wants to do and what I want to do, and we're going to. I mean, I do kind of, I am trying to, it's a very slow process. I'm trying to paint a picture of a society a bit like that with the whole Liv Ellis story. But you're restricted because you're just offering little glimpses of it. You're actually trying to tell a narrative. And then you have just these sort of things. And obviously you've got to put food on the table and, a roof over your head and things as well. And it's very restricting. But
you are right. People are going to do what they want to do. Farmers don't farm because of the money. They farm because they love farming.
It's in their blood.
It is. I love working with metal. I am not a I'm not a two-dimensional artist. I'm doing good to make a stick man that looks like a stick man. But
so really, it's allowing people the space.
I suck at drawing too.
No, but it's allowing people the space to do what they enjoy, and this is the whole point of this. This quantitative versus the qualitative. It's like we need a vast array of skills and etc. But because people are kind of forced through, so it's social economics, really, isn't it, or like governmental structures or whatever you want to talk about. They're not able to fulfill what they came here to do, and this is why I was talking about the spiritual evolution. You can't call it communism because really that's kind of the idea of. It's the idealized idea of communism, which doesn't work. But it's
Well,
finding
it takes the soul out of it. Communism is what we're trying to describe, but with all the soul and all the spirit sucked out of it, in my opinion.
yeah.
Communism is just Satanism at its heart. It's Ahriman and Lucifer had a baby, and he was Karl Marx. And
Yeah, I think that the two perspectives are not mutually exclusive.
but
But,
it's not an invitation for people to be lazy. It's an invitation to do what you want to do. Take
but
the
people
time to
wouldn't be
figure out
lazy.
what you want to do.
Exactly.
You know,
But
you
who's
should,
to say you've got to do one thing, though? That's another thing, isn't it? It's like, maybe we should have a society where, like, kids go to school at 7 and they focus on play and developing, like, hands-on skills, and they go back to this kind of village idea where people would go and learn different skills with their parents and be passed around the village or whatever, and seeing what they're good at, and then they're able to then go on a focused journey, and then given a time period in their early 20s to 20 to 25, really, because that's when you're still finding out actually what you want to do and who you are, to go and explore. And like, people will have like, people will have 3 careers in their life,
doesn't it? That's what I meant earlier when I was talking about like a sort of we kind of subscribe to, instead of being forced to sort of go along with the laws of wherever you're kind of geographically located. Why not have a system where basically you subscribe to I don't know. This needs a lot more development. I've written it out better, but I don't think I've got the time or the clarity of mind at the moment to express it. So I'm just going to leave it for now.
Well, why don't you both come back on? Because it's getting to like nearly. I'll be honest, my bone has gone a bit numb, and I've had a really long day. I've had a really deep, intensive healing session this morning, so my head's a bit foggy. But I'm loving the ideas that are coming out of this. What do you say, Kirsten?
Yeah.
Would you be interested in coming back on?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Before we
I've really enjoyed it.
Answer
been a pleasure.
Kathleen's question here. She says, what do y'all think about creating people chosen by random number generators to serve on community councils for a couple of years instead of the current voting system?
I think we'd have to be right. I'm going to go first, so I'm going to steal this. So I think in theory, you'd need a set of people that meets a certain level of education, understanding, and development, really socially and moralistically, to be able to fulfill that. But I think it could be achievable within that context, but I don't think you could do it across the board. But then on the other hand, because I'm playing devil's advocate with myself, what you actually want to represent the whole of society is somebody who picks potatoes, somebody who designs engineering, somebody who writes laws. Do you know what I mean? Who's got a real vast wealth of knowledge that can represent a section of society for everybody. So I don't know, maybe there's something in that, maybe not the random generator, but I think definitely trying to get a representative for every walk of that, or a good portion of most walks of life would be good. Because at the moment, like in England, you've got the members of parliament, they're all pretty much in the same club, aren't they? They've all gone to Eton or wherever, and it's just, nepotism in action.
And they're all unified. They've got a lot of things they disagree with, but what they all agree in is that they effing hate the rest of us. They hate us riffraff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's what they've got in common, and that's what keeps
them. Yeah.
The plebs, exactly. Yeah,
the pleb class. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, go for it. Next person.
Well, I sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think that I've been rolling over this idea as well in my head, and basically the concept for Kat is that if you contribute to society, people recognize who contributes to society. If you're contributing to society, you should have a say in how things are done. People who don't want to contribute to society, they just want to do their thing, they don't care, shouldn't have a say in it. And that doesn't mean that they're bad people. I know a lot of people who are very intelligent who just have no interest in being part of political debates at all. they should have that right. But if they don't want to be part of society, if they just want to live out their life and do their doodles and manicure their yard, they should not be telling the rest of us what to do.
But they still
know?
have a right to do that. I can just tell them that they can't do
Yeah.
it. The
Like-
flip side,
Yeah.
isn't it?
My grandpa
Exactly.
was in his 90s. He was like, I literally don't care about politics. I'll be dead in 10 years anyway. Why would
But
I
he
want
cared
to go
about
vote?
his healthcare system, and he cared about whether he got, his electricity in his house, and he cared about, whether his grandkids were looked after.
He did, but he didn't bother voting because he's like, I'm not part of that world anymore. I'm living here. I'm telling my stories, but I'm not shaping the world anymore. I shouldn't be voting. He's like, I have.
I think I'm approaching that already. I'm not nearly in my 90s, but yeah.
I have gone there.
But that's
I'm
the thing.
shaping my world, but I'm not.
But this is why we need adults like that. We need elders that aren't going to be like, I need to do this just to serve myself. It's like, well, they've lived a life. They've got the experience. They've got the knowledge. They can sit and say, well, actually, what's for the good of everybody? Because they're not on their own egotistical kind of, let's just me,
Yeah.
And if somebody is involved in business and activity and doing things, they're going to care about what's going on. The businessmen, the workers, the farmers, the craftsmen, they're worried about creating. They're going to be thinking about what they need to be creating. They're going to be the ones who are looking at things and going, where do we need to go from here? If you look at a lot of the guys, the founding fathers of the U.S., a lot of them were farmers, craftsmen, smiths. There weren't bankers and people like that in there. These were guys who were involved in building the world they wanted to live in.
Why we have the expression salt of the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, George Washington was basically U.S. royalty, for lack of a better term. Very rich landowner, farmer. He wasn't out there plowing the field himself.
Probably most of the presidents since then, although I may be wrong. I don't know.
Since in U.S.,
I think all of them.
Since Woodrow Wilson, we haven't had a real president. Because Wilson was the one who gave over U.S. financial sovereignty to the bankers. And everyone after that has been essentially just a puppet.
That's a conspiracy we missed. The Titanic. Speaking
of it. Save it for next time.
We'll talk
Remind me
about it
next time around what Kat just mentioned, how electric co-ops function here. It's fascinating. The utilities are run and owned.
Have you got a notepad, Kirsten?
Yes.
It's a joke between me and Kirsten. Kirsten's the secretary of our relationship.
I was like, take notes.
I've been on the phone and I'm like, Kirsten, are you writing this down? Come on now. Get your shorthand out.
Yeah, she's organized.
I always have a notebook.
And then I'm like, Kirsten, what does this say? And she's like, don't fucking criticize me when I'm writing it down. I'm like, okay.
All right. Kathleen, that's a good point. My electric co-op is very successful as well because everybody lives here. And we have, power outages everywhere else, and we're fine here because we're all local. But let's go ahead and wrap this up because Sam's bum is numb. And
poetry.
But yes, I want to thank Al and Nick for joining us today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here.
Real pleasure.
Thank you, Sam.
It's been awesome. I've really enjoyed it.
Awesome. All right. Well, stick around for a couple minutes, but yeah, we're gonna close this out. So, Sam.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. Catching the flip side.
Bye.